Today we're talking about how to master free will. This is not a philosophical discussion on free will, or do we really have free will, or what is free will, or all these subjects that come up over free will. We're coming from the position that we have free will, we have choice, we make choices, and since we know that our day from morning till night is all kinds of choices, micro and macro choices throughout our day, today's class is dedicated to mastering choice, like becoming a masterful chooser. You could even say that it's about being a masterful human being, because what's unique to human beings is free will. Free will is what makes us special, because we actually can choose this or that, unlike plants or animals or minerals that are totally hardwired for their existence. We, on the other hand, have choice. We can make decisions. So there are going to be 5 categories of mastering free will. We're going to go through all 5 categories of becoming masters of free will. There are 5 ways of mastering free will. We're going to memorize all 5. Each one will be a word, but in honor of us filming today, I'm going to ask you to say the words really loudly when I say them, okay? So number 1 is constant. Okay, let's hear the word constant. 1, 2, 3. Constant. Very good. Even louder. 1, 2, 3. Constant. Get it in there. Okay? And the first one is that you are constantly choosing. Well, you should be constantly choosing. To be an expert in free will, to be a black belt of free will, you want to be constantly choosing. You want to choose at all times. Well, you might say, what am I supposed to choose now? I mean, I'm in this class. You want me to choose to be in the class? Yes, I do. But we're already in the class. Choose it again. Choose it again. Some of you are here because that's what the schedule said. 3 o'clock, there's a class. So you came to the 3 o'clock class. Choose it because you're choosing it, not because it's on the schedule. Some of you said, okay, I'm choosing to come to the 3:10 class, but you're not going to be with me in the class. You're not going to be, meaning with whichever teacher comes. Now, how do you think that feels, that I'm just the teacher that came? I'm a real human being. Choose to be with me this hour. Okay, choose it. Okay, and what else can you choose? Your parents. That your parents are your parents. Can you choose your parents? No. You better believe you can. Tell me, how much is this? Tell me if this is choosing my parents. Hello? Oh, Dad, yeah, what's up? Yeah, I'm a little busy right now. It's not good timing. Yeah, I'll try to call you later. Okay, bye-bye. Did I choose my father? No way. Did not choose my father. You can actually not choose your family, or you can choose your family and have a totally different experience of a phone call from your father or from your mother or from anyone. You can choose at all times, and we know we don't choose sometimes things. How many of us woke up in Jerusalem and stopped choosing to be in Jerusalem today? So choose it. Right now, choose it. Every second is a chance for a choice. Even choosing things that seem to be already chosen, like parents, or what city you woke up in. You can choose it, a career. You can choose your career even if you're already doing it. You can choose your major even though you're already doing it. You got to choose it. And you can see that this is a great step in becoming a master of free will, and that's to choose your life, to choose that which you are already doing, or to make a new choice, whatever. But every second is a chance for a choice. What does this have to do with Judaism? Well, God's creating the world when? Now. When? Now. When? Now. Now, and now, now. God's creating the world now. Your whole life is just a series of nows. And God's choosing to create the world now, and now, and now. The more I choose to be now, and to choose what is now, the more in touch I can be with God. This is the access to God. It's right here and right now, because there is nothing else but right here and right now. Is God creating yesterday? That'd be silly. Is God creating tomorrow? No. Why would he create tomorrow? It hasn't happened yet. Is God creating an hour ago? An hour from now? A minute ago? A minute from now? A second ago? A second? No, none of those. Where's God? What is the USB interface between God and creation? Right here, right now. And as you become an expert in free will and start with step 1, which is choosing, constant choice. Number 1 is constant. By choosing now, so you have a direct link up, a direct connection to God, So you don't have to like wait for your God experience. Those of you who flew to Israel and like kind of thought it'd be cool if you had this like God experience, guess what? This is the God experience. Right here, right now. What do you think so far? Take a moment, everyone. Take a deep breath and just experience the God experience. How do you like it? A little disappointed? Or you think it's cool? It's a little subtle, I understand. Doesn't hit you in the face. But it is right here and right now, and this is where God interfaces with the world. A lot of us are what you call peak experience junkies. We're always chasing the next peak experience. So when we're not having that peak, we feel like we're in this kind of coma. And so we're waiting for the God experience to be something that like hits us in the face. Not necessary. In a principle, the spiritual person sensitizes his or herself to the subtlety of God in the moment. It doesn't take away the peak experiences. They're still going to come. This is still going to be like the highest Shabbos of your life coming up. You're going to go to some wedding, it's going to be so high. You know, you're going to have great experiences in your life. But don't think that when you're not having that peak experience, that it's any less of a God experience. God experience is happening all the time. And that's constant. You only get that when you're connecting constantly as time goes by in the now. Clear? Okay, so that's constant. Let's hear it again. 1, 2, 3. Constant. Very good. And now, the second of the 5 ways of mastering free will, and that is re-evaluation. Number 2, re-evaluation. Let's hear it, everybody. Re-evaluation. Very good. One more time together. Re-evaluation. Re-evaluation. Very good. Re-evaluation is the next level of mastering free will, and that's having the courage to reevaluate your life. See, most people are living their life based on yesterday's plans. You made a plan, and now you're here living out the plan. You chose a career, now you're living out the career. You chose a spouse, now you're living out that marriage with the spouse. And so what happens is it kind of gets dusty and crusty and musty and anything else that ends with usty. And, you know, it doesn't, it's like Roger Waters said in Pink Floyd, The Wall. Day after day, the love turns gray like the skin on the dying man. Yeah? Doesn't sound so good. So whereas when you reevaluate and reevaluate, where you look at your life and you say, is this what I want? And you have the courage to reevaluate it, what it does is it puts new power, new inspiration to that which you're already doing. And you may actually make a shift, but you could be a doctor for many years, or you're pre-med, and you can stop and say, is this what I want? Rather than just being in a robotic, like, you know, dictates of the past, ruling and running your life, you can actually live your life by every day reevaluating your life. So there's constant choosings, number 1. Number 2 is to reevaluate. That's the bigger stuff. Like, is this the career I want? Is this the spouse I want? Do I want to be an observant Jew or not? The big stuff, where you reevaluate all that. And that way you go out of robotics and you go into the inspired expression of your choices in life. For most things that you reevaluate, you're not going to change anything. When I mean reevaluate my marriage, I don't mean I'm going to trade up, you know, or exchange my wife. What it means, I'm going to look again at my wife and say, I'm not going to say what's missing, I'm going to say what's more. What's more to appreciate here? Like, what has she done now? What's the latest level of dedication to our family? What's the latest thing she's pulled off in raising these kids and in being my spouse? And where's she at now in her dedication to our marriage? And by reevaluating that, I'm able to come to a new appreciation of my spouse, a new appreciation of my marriage. in my career with Aish, you know, or any other work I do. So by reevaluating it, I can now say, yeah, I'm in fully. This is what I want to be doing. I choose my career right now, even though I've been doing the same exact stuff for over a decade. And the Torah class I give at Aish, I've been doing for 2 decades. But I'm in today like it's my first day on the job. Yeah, I'm in because I reevaluate it. I look, is this really what I want? Answer, yes. Now, real reevaluation, though, takes the courage. It takes courage because what if it's not? If it's not, you're going to have to make a 180-degree shift and do something else. And so part of reevaluation is having the courage to make that shift in what you're already doing. So regarding reevaluation, there are 2 pitfalls you got to watch out for. One is momentum. When you've been doing something a long time, the chances are you'll keep doing it. So that's number 1, is watch out for that momentum from previous decisions. Number 2 pitfall is what stops us from reevaluating is the fear of what will they think. What will they think? What will my family think? What will my friends think? What will everyone say? And mostly what stops people from reevaluating in life is the fear of what will they say if I reevaluate my lifestyle. And you'll never see that more than in Jerusalem, where people who are not observant are approaching, you know, the Torah world to learn Torah. And here we are, like, teaching you Torah, and you're like, it makes you reevaluate, like, wow, you know, maybe my lifestyle's like, needs a little adjustment. Yeah, maybe I need to adjust my lifestyle to the Torah. Except what do you think is the number 1 thing that stops them from reevaluating? What will they say? And you see that in the end, you're not afraid of change. Change isn't your problem. If you won the lottery and won like suddenly $1 billion, and now you got like a new wardrobe, you live in a new neighborhood, you're driving a new kind of car, you're like, everything's changing all around you, you'd love it. Because what will they say? Good stuff. Look who won the lottery. When, on the other hand, people who just won't understand the change you may make when you reevaluate, which could also be a career, it could be a spouse, it could be anything, but especially when it comes to Judaism, it ruffles a lot of feathers for people. And so we wind up not reevaluating our lifestyle, even though we know we should, because of what will they say. And of course that's ridiculous, because none of them are going to be with you in, you know, they're not going to, first of all, it's your parents, so at the end of your life, they're not going to be around. They're going to be, unless they're going to live to 150, you know, it's not going to be your parents to point, you're not going to be able to point your fingers at anybody. There's going to be no one to point your fingers at. In the end, you're going to live alone, you're going to die alone. And you got to decide now what's your life about and be real with that now. Because in the end, all fingers will be on you. And in the end of your life, when you get upstairs, in the end, you got to own it. You got to own it. Number 1 is constant. Number 2, reevaluation. And obviously, to make your life decisions based on what will they say is, that's not the way you want to go. And the way you do want to go is the way of integrity. Integrity. What does integrity mean? Integrating what you know with who you are. Integrating what you know with who you are. Constantly evolving as a human being. Constantly integrating. Whatever it is you learn, you become it. Whatever you study, whatever you learn in life, you become it. That's integrity. You integrate it into your life. What are we really giving up when we don't allow ourselves to grow because of what will they say? What we trade is our integrity. So you trade your integrity, and what you get is to look good for people. That's what you want your life to amount to? Just a bunch of looking good for people? Who are looking good for people, who are looking good for people, who are looking good for people? They're doing the same thing. That's what you want your life to be? Rather than look good, I'd rather you be known for being good. Don't trade being good for looking good. Actually, be good. And be for your family and friends and all the people who you'd wonder what would they say. Just be the person that they know that actually is really good and not just looking good. Be good. And what is Judaism anyway except how to be good? It's like being good on steroids. It's like how to be good with precision and accuracy. Jewish law is just how to be really good. How can you be really good? Like clean up your speech from both foul language, clean up your speech from gossip and evil speech about others. Just being really good. You know, Judaism is about being really good. So what's number one? Loud. Number one? Loud. Number one? Number two? Okay, 2 pitfalls, momentum and looking good. We'll call it looking good. Momentum and looking good. Looking good for others. Okay? It's really avoiding looking bad. Okay? Should we just call it what will they say? I think we should. Okay? We'll call it, so number 1, 2 pitfalls. Number 1, momentum. Number 2, what will they say? Okay? Number 3, the third way of mastering free will is called battleground. Everybody say battleground. 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 A little stronger. Battleground. Okay, number 3 is battleground, and that's the battleground between the soul and the body. You see, if I put you in an MRI machine, and next to that MRI machine I put another being inside an MRI machine, like for example a chimpanzee or an orangutan, a primate. So I put the primate in the MRI and I put you in the MRI. Are you guys going to look different in the MRI? Not very different at all. No, you'll look actually quite the same. The difference between you and an orangutan is something called the neshama. You have a neshama. Orangutan has a nefesh, but it doesn't have a neshama. It has a nefesh. It has a certain level of animal soul. Again, it's a totally hardwired soul. It doesn't have free will. It will always be relegated to survival and reproduction. The human being, on the other hand, isn't just about survival and reproduction. The human being has a whole other part of them called the soul voice, which is best reflected in what are called higher aspirations. Orangutans don't have higher aspirations. They don't build buildings of Torah. You know, think you're floating in the air right now. You're like 6, 7 stories over the Kotel Plaza, the Western Wall Plaza, built by human engineering that all came from this higher aspiration. Yeah? And in this very, very expensive building, no one's making any money off that. It doesn't create any more survival. Okay, might create a lot of reproduction because people get married a lot around here. But but you see, it's like it's not part of the Darwinian thing in the animal kingdom or the plant kingdom of survival and reproduction. This is a higher aspiration building. It's based on wisdom. It's based on the part of you that is reaching for the stars of like, what is the ultimate? What's it? What's the it I'm looking for? What's the ultimate connection? So you have an animal voice and you have a soul voice. An animal voice and a soul voice. And those two voices are fighting over the throne. In Kabbalah, your brain is called the throne because you can only think one thought at a time. You think a lot of thoughts during the day, thousands, but only one at a time. And there are 2 kings who are fighting over the throne. There's the animal soul, or the animal voice as we call it, and then there's the soul voice. Okay? And those are the 2 kings fighting over the throne. Who's going to win? So you think about it throughout your life, who's been winning? Has it been the animal winning? Is it the soul winning? For most Jews today, it's more the animal voice has been winning. But if you look in Jewish history, it was the soul voice that was winning. It's just that we're so immersed now in animal voice culture. You see, this whole fight started with Jacob and Esau. Jacob represented the soul voice, and Esau represented the voice of the animal. Survival and reproduction, immediate gratification. And we have been living, it used to be only Ashkenazim had this. This is why you'll find that Ashkenazim are much more atheistic than Jews who are from Sephardic descent. Because Jews of Sephardic descent, they've been living amongst believers for the last couple thousand years. Whereas Ashkenazim have been living amongst atheists for the last couple thousand years. And so we've been living, Ashkenazim like myself, have been living amongst Esau for the last 2,000 years. So for us, belief comes harder. That's why Hasidim like myself, we do these like extreme prayer sessions and stuff. Whereas the Sephardim, they like look in our window of our shul and they're just like, are you guys out of your mind? Like, you don't think God hears you? You got to scream. You know, you got to jump up and down. You got to go crazy. Don't you realize who God is? But for us Ashkenazim, we have to do something extreme if we want to feel God in our life. So we've all been kind of brainwashed towards the animal voice. We've all been brainwashed towards this like immediate gratification. We can't seem to postpone our pleasure. Whereas a Jew always had this more patient, throughout history, a Jew always had a more patient view of things. A Jew always knew that the greater good was sometimes going to come later and not something you were necessarily going to indulge in right now. And so all of us, in a way, need a little bit of a surgery. I like to call it an Esavotomy. Get Esav out of me. Okay? Jacob's brother Esav. An Esavotomy. You've got to get Esav out of you and get the Jacob into you. Okay? So you can imagine that in the battleground between the voice of the animal, which is Esav's voice, or Western civilization's voice, the Greek voice, the American voice, you know, the Westerner voice, versus the voice of Jacob, the voice of Israel, the voice of Torah, the voice of wisdom. So the one way to do this is you always imagine that Jacob and Esav are up in heaven and they're hanging out together. You know, they're brothers. They're hanging out in heaven together. And they're overlooking earth. And they're going through all the earthlings, all the people on earth. And they're deciding who is this guy yours or this guy yours? Like, whose kid is this? And so, you know, imagine that any time in your life that if they were watching you right now, that you'd never want Esav to say, yeah, he's mine. And Jacob's like, he's not mine. You know? That definitely can't be mine. And what you do want is to say, Jacob, I'm yours. I'm yours. I'm yours, Jacob. And Esav's like, that guy's not mine. She's not mine. You know, that's one of yours. Okay, so like, for example, at night in town in Jerusalem, like that's not where you want to be. Okay, you don't want to be in town in Jerusalem. Sometimes I go on little Jacob excavations there. I'll go into town to the pubs, you know, and just go take care of Jacob, who thinks he's Esav. And yeah, you guys probably never saw me in town, but every couple weeks I'll go into town and just go take care of Jacob over there, who's having a bit of an identity crisis. And every time I'm there, inevitably, I help a lot of people in a matter of an hour in there. I really should be going every night, but I go every couple weeks. I go for now. Yeah, last time I was there, this guy says, pray for me, please, just pray for me. And I'm, you know, this is in a bar. This guy's drinking a big thing of beer. I'm like, why? Is something wrong? You know? He starts telling me all the pills he had popped that night. And he's like, pray for me that I make it till tomorrow. And I'm like, do you want me to call an ambulance? And he's like, I don't think so. And then that's what it's like in town when Jacob has his identity crisis and is living the Esav life. Anyway, so number 3 is to know you're on a battleground. What's a good way to die at war? Is to not know you're in a battleground. See, a lot of people want to pretend everything's fine. Yeah, most people, even me, go outside this building, go around. Everyone's trying to pretend like they got it together. I got it together. You know, Rabbi, don't worry about me. I got it together. Yeah. Everyone wants to pretend that everything is fine. It's very interesting because us rabbis and other practitioners of Torah would never say we've got it together. I'm in a battle. I'm in a battleground between my animal voice and my soul voice. And the second I want to pretend like everything's fine and there is no battle, guess who's going to win? Esav. The animal voice will win. Boom. Just like that. Okay, so some of you are like, great, yeah, I don't want to live on a battleground. You know, that's like trying to hold a pull-up and you never get to let go. Welcome to being a Yid. Okay? It's part of being a Jew. Being a Jew means being in a constant pull-up. Okay, you got to stay fit. You got to stay always using those muscles. You can practice, by the way. One of the ways to practice using those muscles is when it doesn't matter, do the right thing. For example, I always erase the board. Okay, I write on boards a lot. I erase the board when I'm done using the board. Does it make a big difference? Is it right? Is it wrong to leave my writing on the board? It's a good question. But since it doesn't matter that much, that's a good chance for me to start building more muscles. Piece of trash. I could either leave it on the table or I could put it in the garbage. I could bust my dish or my wife could come get my dish later. Little muscles. Raise the dish, put it on the sink, maybe even wash it. Okay, let's not go that far. But, you know, put the cup in the garbage, put the piece of paper in the garbage. It blew out and flew down the street. Chase after it. Go chase down the street after that piece of garbage. Muscles. It'll build your muscles. And especially when it doesn't count that much. So if you fail, you didn't fall that bad. Build your muscles. Don't wait for real tests to start doing the right thing. You're in a battleground all the time. So that battle is happening between the animal and the soul. And the animal side is lazy. It doesn't want to chase after a bag that flew out of the garbage. But chase after it anyway and build the muscles so that later when it's a cheeseburger, and you know, the cheeseburger is, you know, $2.99 with fries and a Coke. And right next door at Glot Hut, the hamburger is $7.99 and there's no fries and Coke coming with that burger. And you open up your wallet and you look inside and you got $5. And your house is 6 blocks away. So at that point, you're going to need muscles. You're going to need muscles at that point. So to do the right thing, you'll need some muscles. So build them up when it doesn't matter, so that when it matters and you're about to deal with a serious Torah commandment, at that point, you got some muscles and you could do the right thing right there and then. Okay? So that's battleground. Let's hear battleground. Number 1, constant. Together. Number 1, constant. Number 2, reevaluation. Number 3, battleground. Number 4. Number 4 is the soul. So we're going to call it soul. Everyone say soul. So you've got this battle between the body voice and the soul voice. And what you want to do is you want to choose the soul. However, you probably think from what I'm saying, you're supposed to just take out your shotgun and like point it at the soul. Sorry, point it at the body and just go like, you're probably thinking that what I was saying is take your gun, point it at the body voice, and just go to the body voice. No, that's Buddhism. Okay? This is Judaism. It rhymes, Buddhism and Judaism. Buddhism is be celibate, fasting, right? Don't eat too much. Renounce all your worldly possessions. Give up the Porsche, the Mercedes, and the motorcycle. And go live in a monastery, become a monk. Not Judaism. God created the world so that He would have. God created the world so that He would have a dwelling place below. A dwelling place below. What does it mean below? I'm quoting our sages. When God says that He created the world so that He would have a dwelling below, what He meant was, or what our sages meant, was that below meaning in your animal instincts. In your animal instincts, bring God. Bring God into the animal instincts. Bring God into the animal voice. So the animal voice wants survival and reproduction. Well, survival has to do with money. So earn it honestly. Give tzedakah when you get it. See how what you do for a living is bettering the world and making it a better place. Infuse your livelihood with godliness. When you get the money and you make the money, you build a home or buy a home that has a beautiful dining room for a huge Shabbos table. Spend the money on gorgeous Shabbos food, a silver Kiddushkai, a gorgeous big silver menorah for Hanukkah. If you're going to get a car that's going to be nice and comfortable to drive to shul in, and buy yourself a spot in shul. Buy yourself a spot in shul. Not because you have to do it. You don't have to. There's plenty of shuls you can go where you don't have to buy your seat. But when you buy your seat, the shul actually can pay for its electricity. And the rabbi can get his salary and stuff. Use your money. Be involved in the world. Don't go into some monastery. Be totally interfaced with physicality. But use it for God. Use it for God. And that's the soul. When we say number 4, which is soul, what we're meaning is get your body voice subjugated. Get your body voice trained, like training a dog, like train the dog. And get it to actually have God's presence in its work, in its money, in its expenditures, in its tzedakah. Spend your money on making sure your kids grow up in Torah. It's a lot more expensive to raise your children in Torah if you live outside of Israel. In Israel, it's free to raise your kids in Torah. But outside of Israel, it's very expensive. Spend your money on that. That's what's worth spending your money on. And that's the soul, meaning get the body voice, which wants to make all the money and wants to live in this world and have like everything, and use it for God. And the other thing, that's survival, and then there's reproduction, you know, which is sexuality. And why is the circumcision where it is? It's the bris. The bris, the covenant between God and man, is right there. God's saying, don't be monks. Use your body. But use it for God. Use the physical world for God. A dwelling below. God's saying, like, I want a dwelling below. I don't want you coming up to heaven on some monastery mountaintop. I want you totally engaged in physicality in the lower realms, but do it right. Do it with God in mind. Do it bringing God into creation, into your life. So that's number 4, is soul. How do you do it? Well, one of the things you have to do is, besides all those ways I said, is to be a good negotiator. You got to negotiate with the body. If you just try to shut your body down, your body's going to go crazy. If you think you can just shut the body off, the body voice will, it's going to get a megaphone and blast you away. You can't shut the body voice off like that. The body voice needs to have a say. You can always trick it, though. It's like a dog. Just throw it a bone or something. Throw it a little biscuit. In other words, there's always a kosher alternative to anything your body wants. If your body voice is asking for something, just throw it a little biscuit. Give it a little something. Make sure it's kosher. And it doesn't understand time, so you can tell it like, if you let me learn Torah all day today, I promise to take you for an ice cream. And it'll let you learn Torah all day. You can just give it little rewards. You just bribe it. Negotiate with it. You've got to be a good negotiator. Also, have you ever noticed that you've ever had destructive thoughts about Judaism? You guys ever notice that? You have destructive thoughts about the synagogue or about the rabbi or anything. You guys ever get these like destructive thoughts about good things? So the reason that you've gotten destructive thoughts about good things, it's because you were ignoring your body voice too much. When you ignore the body voice too much, so it starts telling you like bad things about good things. It starts saying like destructive things about good things. So if you ever have a destructive thought about Judaism, Torah, synagogue, rabbis, anything, you ever have a destructive thought like that? So what's going on is you just like totally ignored your body voice probably in the last hour. And what you want to do is just simply ask the question. You would just ask it to your little kids. So like my little kid, I call him Johnny, meaning my adult person is Yom Tov, Rabbi Yom Tov. But I've got a little Johnny inside. So I say, if ever I'm having a destructive thought about Judaism, I know that Johnny wanted something and I ignored him. So I just say, Johnny, was there something I ignored? And he's like, you bet there is. And what was it? And, you had 3 hours free time. I wanted to go mountain biking. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. And I said, well, sorry. And he's like, you just took on more meetings, one-on-one meetings with people. You could have gone mountain biking. You're just Mr. Responsibility. And I'm like, I am so sorry, Johnny. I promise, settle down, little guy. I'll take you mountain biking tomorrow. Really? Yes, I'll take you. You promise? Yes, I'll take you around. Okay. And then he shuts up for another day. And the next day, you can't cheat him. I take him riding. Take him on a ride the next day. Take Johnny out for a ride. Treat him to a little beer afterwards. Okay, you got to take care of Johnny. And so anyway, I'm just giving you a weight. You see how I'm negotiating? And including, so I just discussed two themes. One is negotiating with the body, and also when you have those destructive thoughts, it's because you probably just ignored your body voice, and now Johnny's angry. So everyone should make up their own name, maybe a little kid nickname when you were little, and let that be like the body voice, and just negotiate. Throw it a bone, give it something kosher alternative, and it will leave you alone to do your thing. Never understands time. So also, if you want to study in yeshiva for a year, never tell your body voice you're going to yeshiva for a year. It'll go crazy. It doesn't get time, so it's just like, you can just tell it like, let's go to yeshiva for 3 weeks. Now, when you buy the ticket, make sure it's a year. Okay, it's a year ticket, and you tell the body, you say, we're going to yeshiva for 3 weeks. Once in a while, someone tells me that, I say, so how long are you here studying in Jerusalem? They say 3 weeks. Me too. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, 3 weeks. 3 weeks at a time. It's been 22 years now. 3 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 weeks. I'm still on my first 6 weeks that I came to Jerusalem. But I came on a 6-week trip. I'm still on the 6-week trip. 6 weeks. That's all. Okay. And number 5. So let's go through them all together. Loud. It helps you wake up, too, because I've noticed people are very sleepy, and I'm amongst the sleepy ones. Okay? So here we go. Number 1. Constant. Number 2. Reevaluation. Number 3. Battleground. Number 4. Soul. Okay? Constant reevaluation. Battleground. Soul. And now for the final one. The final way of being a master of free will is God. Why God? Because when you walk around this world, it looks like you're in its own creation, like you're in its own thing. This is like, this world is the beginning and end of reality, right? When we walk around the world, it looks like this is it. Like this is life. This is the world. But if you go Kabbalistically, you're not in the world. You're in God's mind. Everything that's ever happened is in God's mind. Don't forget, God created the world out of himself. That's all there was. Before there was a world, there was absolute nothing, which is God. And God created the world from itself. So the whole world's ultimately God. So you can walk around this world like it's this world, or you can walk around the same exact way, like with your eyes like that, just going like, whoa, this is God's world. It's two totally different ways of walking around the world. You can go for a hike in the forest. It'll be very beautiful as a forest. Or you can walk through the forest as you're walking through the mind of God that's now coming up as a forest. I can be married to my wife, Leah, and I'm married to my wife, Leah. There she is. Or I can be married to God in the form of Leah. That's pretty magical. I can have these children, that are my kids in my house, and those are my children. Or I can have God in the form of my children. I'll treat my wife and children differently if they're God in the form of my wife and children. I treat an orange differently when it's God in the form of an orange. Everything in the world is infused with godliness because everything's made of godliness. There is nothing but godliness. That's why we cover our eyes when we say Shema and say that God is one, because he's really one. Absolute oneness. It's not like the other religions in the world that say there's one God. Nowhere in the Torah does it say there's one God. The Torah says God is one. See, other religions in the world are what you'd call softcore monotheists. They believe in one God. Judaism doesn't say that. Judaism is hardcore monotheism. It's the belief that God is one, mono, there's nothing else. And it says this in the Torah. It says God is one. It doesn't say there's one of him. There happens to also be one of them, but he's absolute oneness. It says in the Torah, Einod milvado, there is nothing but him. all of this is an illusion. Yet you can walk around in it and think this is it. Or you can walk around it and be like, wow, I'm in the mind of God. This is awesome. Now go drink a beer. Drink a beer that's God and freak out on it. And it makes you want to say a blessing. Because when you say that blessing, it goes from a mundane beer or a mundane burger or a mundane anything, or a mundane spouse or a mundane family or a mundane world, and it becomes magical. It becomes God's world because you're ultimately in the mind of God. But this is a free will choice. You have to make the shift, always. Just keep shifting back to, I'm inside the mind of God. This is wild. This is magical. I'm in the mind of God. This is so cool, so amazing. It's a major paradigm shift. And think about the softcore monotheism, the belief in one God. Does that make a difference to anyone in here? Would that make a big difference to find out there's one of them? Thank you very much. No difference. I'm not going to change my lifestyle for that. I'm not going to be more gentle to my wife because there's one God. I'm not going to be more loving to my kids because there's one God, or loving to you because there's one God. It doesn't make a difference. There being one God does not make a difference. Okay, it makes a difference if you're a pagan. You have to get rid of all your gods and just have that one God. Okay, if anything, I guess it makes a difference to them. But for us, it doesn't make a difference. You understand what other religions brought to the world to go around the world and kind of carpet bomb them so that they'd stop being pagans? Yeah, okay, that was a shift to like stop praying down to wood and stone and start praying to the one God. Okay? But for Judaism, that's not us. We're the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. For us, the belief in one God is boring. Okay? Imagine I got in here today and I was like, today we'll be discussing monotheism, the belief in one God. You'd be like, kill me already. Like, where's the pillow? Does this classroom come with pillows? Let us all go get a cup of coffee so we can stay awake for it. The belief that God is one, absolutely one, and there's nothing else. V'hu echad ve'ein sheni. There's nothing other than God. That's a blow away a concept. That is a paradigm shift. That blows your mind. That's what Abraham made the difference with. That's Abraham's big difference that he brought to the world. And that's number 5. Number 5 of becoming a black belt or a master of free will is to be able to choose at all times to be in the mind of God, to be in the magic of the world. This magical world that God creates all around you. And you're the star of the world. Aren't you the star of the world? You're the star of the film. I'll prove it to you. Go outside into the lobby there. You'll go out to the lobby. You'll just be like, oh my gosh, he's right. It's being created all around me. Like, I'm the star of the world. Tonight when you go to bed, you'll be like going to bed and you'll just be like, good night. You're in the mind of God, and God's creating the world around you for you. And not only for you, but for him, for everybody. God's creating the world. Everyone's the star of the movie in God's world. It's wild. And you start realizing how special you are. You are so special. And then you can do great things, because if you're the star of the film, it's probably going to work out for you. The stars rarely die in the film. They fail a few times, and then they break through, and everyone in the theater is so excited. So your success is guaranteed in this movie. All you have to do is believe in yourself. Believe that God's, making it happen. Yeah, it's going to be great. Okay, so that's number 5, and that's God. So we're going to go through all 5 again. Let's do it 4 times, so we've got the class memorized. So let's get it memorized real quick. Here we go. Together, we're going to do it 4 times. Constant reevaluation. Wait, let's do it together, everybody. Constant reevaluation. Loud. Battleground. Soul. God. Louder. Constant reevaluation. Battleground. Soul. God. Constant reevaluation. Battleground. Soul. God. Now for the brainwash. Constant reevaluation. Battleground. Soul. God. Again, constantly choosing every second some time to check in, interface with God, And but most of all, just to choose what is already, and to that's basically it. Constant is to constantly choose what's happening right now. Stop complaining and start choosing what is. You want to make an adjustment, get up and change the air conditioning. But otherwise, sitting there complaining about your life is a waste of time. Be in it and choose it, just as it is. All it is and all it ain't. Okay? Number 2, reevaluation. You have to be able to reevaluate your life. Most of the time, you're not going to change anything, but you'll at least put inspiration into that which already is. It has 2 pitfalls. Pitfall number 1, momentum from the past. Pitfall number 2, what will they think? Is our constant concern of what are they going to think of me if I were to reevaluate my lifestyle, career, or anything else. Okay? Battleground is the battle between the animal voice, the instincts of the animal, that's the instincts of the body, survival and reproduction, and the soul voice, which always wants the highest aspirations. It really just wants the transcendental to connect with God. Then number 4 is soul. Soul is that you want to take the animal voice. You don't want to shoot it. You don't want to get rid of it. That's Buddhism. This is Judaism. You want to infuse it with the higher aspiration. Get your body voice, your animal voice for survival and reproduction, or money and sexuality. Get it subjugated to the soul voice so that it's your engine, that it's working for you. Okay? For the soul voice, to get you everything to the highest level, to give God a dwelling down below, and to raise your animal up. And last of all is God, and that's to know that you're ultimately in the mind of God, and everything going on all around you is just God in the form of that thing, and you are the star of the show. Thank you very much.